Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day examiners and everyone. My name is Sheryn Fathia Fajrin. I'm from English Department 2016. In this chance, I would like to present my thesis entitled The Moral Contradiction of the Actions of the Government in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Brave New World is a dystopian novel that presents itself in the form of utopia. The government in this novel condition the entire life of each individual using technology in order to create stability and maximize happiness. The government also feels it necessary to abolish the traditional moral rules and establish the entirely new moral contract. The people of the world state also think that they are happy since there are no illness, sadness, old age, and poverty. Such conditions might sound horrid and immoral to the readers, but the government in Brave New World repeatedly defends its actions in the name of pleasure and happiness. Contradiction appears because it yields stable happiness and welfare that are the main criteria for something to be deemed morally right. But the society itself does not know what happiness really is and how to achieve it by their own efforts, because government has arranged their entire life in such a way. Therefore, from the above explanations, I have made two research questions. First, can the government's actions in Brave New World be morally justified according to Mill's utilitarianism? Second, how does the technological interference conducted by the government affect the society of the world state, and what are the impacts from the individual and government perspective? I analyze the motives of the government's actions towards the people of the world state and try to seek how the technological interference done by the government impacts the world state. I'm using moral philosophical as the approach to discover moral values in this novel, and supported with utilitarianism theory by Mill as the foundation and guidance on assessing moral rules. In conducting this research, I use close reading method that I pay attention to intrinsic elements such as characters, plot, setting, and else. I'm reviewing and take a look at previous studies on Brave New World and other literary works within similar topics to broaden my understanding and avoid repetition of a research topic. The first research is by Faisal Goni from Gajah Mada University. His study discusses the symbol of politics and significance in Brave New World. Second researcher is Najah Fadila Ilyas from English Department, Andalas University, who also wrote a thesis that analyzed how the government in the Brave New World novel constructs its technological progress discourse and points out the bad impacts of it on society. Next review is an article from Luma Ibrahim Albarni from Diyala University, who writes that the Brave New World brings other description of future life. The author tries to explain through this journal how stability is achieved in the future, but there are prices that society will pay achieving it. Next are the findings of the research. The first part will discuss the moral reasoning for technological interference in human life using Mill's utilitarianism as the guideline. As the guideline. The world in Brave New World novel has gone through the 9 years of war that left a serious wound to the world. Then the world leaders then tried to solve it by merging into centralized government so that it doesn't exist anymore, countries trying to destroy each other. The government doesn't want such a thing as violence in achieving its goals. Then they decided to carry out human conditioning methods that are arguably painless. Human conditioning involves the implementation of four methods. First method is ectogenesis. This method is where the embryo is developed outside the uterus. Babies are grown in bottles with a natural relationship between a human pair. This is because human relationship involving emotions and desire can affect a person's happiness that the government wants to avoid it. Um, Ectogenesis is also backed up by fourth disapproval of liberal democracy, where it allows one person to wish to be in other person's position who is considered better. Following Mill's principle as quoted by Crisp, actions not ruled out by customary morality but harmful, for example, succeeding in an examination, resulting in failure and depression to other candidates, harmful to others and therefore candidates for interference. But the general happiness is best promoted by non-interference. According to According to the quote above, the best thing to do is not to make any interference. Therefore, the decision to implement ectogenesis to engineer human beings cannot be morally justified. Second method is Neopalvolvian rooms. It is a therapy room designed to make humans reject certain things, such as books and nature. Fourth considers any actions that keep people from working and consuming as harmful because it hinders the economic wheel from turning. If the economy collapses, nobody will be happy. If people are unhappy, there will be unrest. This is mentioned by Mill as quoted by Chris. Actions not ruled out by customary morality, which do affect others, perhaps causing them displeasure, but are not harmful. For example, drunkenness, which does not harm anyone, within the self-regarding sphere, and not candidates for interference. Until the individual decided to read books and go into nature, which would be against the rule, they are not candidates for interference. Therefore, the world state government's decision to use Neopalvolvian rooms cannot be morally justified. Third method is hypnopedia. Involves playing sets of audio while people are asleep. It is performed to give people moral education which ought never in any circumstances to be rational. By repeating the audio a specific number of times, the government plants their moral rules into people's heads without having to face questions and make explanations. People will unconsciously accept whatever the government gives them, including moral groups that have been regulated since they were created. For example, Epsilon as the lowest social class want one alpha position that as the smartest creation because they feel grateful as Epsilon. According to Mill, as quoted by Chris, there ought to exist the fullest liberty of professing and discussing as a matter of ethical conviction any doctrine, however immoral it might be considered. Being allowed to adopt or refute certain moral rules, people will be able to find the objective logic behind it and not blindly following it as the single truth. Once again, the word state government is making an interference that cannot be morally justified and even against its own final aim, that is happiness. The final method is the use of soma. People are required to consume soma, a type of hallucinatory drug, whenever they face difficult situations or about to feel any kind of emotion. Soma has no destructive effect on human body, making it safe to consume it at any time. Soma distracts people from actually feeling and thinking about anything. It eliminates the need to make choices and individual decisions because Soma keeps people from straying from their regular activity. This is against Mill's principle, as quoted by Crisp. The human faculties of perception, judgment, discriminative feeling, mental activity, and even moral preference are exercised only in making a choice. The faculties are called into no exercise by doing a thing merely because others do it, no more than by believing a thing only because others believe it. It can be derived from above analysis that the world state government relies on consumerism as the basis of what they call general happiness. As a consequence, no regard is paid for other things such as intimacy and individual freedom. It does eliminate conflict and maintains stability, but at the same time, it also creates an ignorant society. Next part is the impact of technological interference on society in Brave New World. The government of the world state relies on technological advancement to perform its actions. They shifted from military technology, which produced weapons, to biological, physiological, and psychological advances that conditions human. This subchapter discusses the destructive impacts of technological interference that imposed on society, both to the individuals and the government. First is the impact of technological interference on individuals in the world state. In the world state, technological advances are deemed so valuable that everything else should be altered and or adjusted to support it. The ectogenesis and Bokanovsky process aim directly to adjustment of the home environment. Familial intimacy, commitment, and romance are effectively removed from the society due to them not contributing enough to the economy. People in the world state grow without the emotional resources, making them alien to the concept of passion and desire. No one ever knows how to empathize with other people's feelings, not even death, because they are conditioned to see it as a normalcy. This is shown in how children react upon witnessing Linda's death. They met his eyes and simultaneously grinned. One of them pointed with his eclair butt. "Is she dead?" he asked. Everyone is equally important, meaning that no one is really important enough. They just live through the days to their deaths without anything worth feeling. What they feel is not happiness but an ignorant bliss in their obedience. Promiscuity also becomes the right and moral thing to do in the world state, promoted through the hypnopedic lesson that says everyone belongs to anyone else. The effect of this is shown in how Helmholtz Watson as an alpha perceived Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. Helmholtz had listened to the scene of the lovers' first meeting in a puzzled interest. The scene in the orchard had delighted him with its poetry, but the sentiments expressed had made him smile. Getting into such a state about having a girl, it seemed rather ridiculous. He can admire the work probably, but failed to understand its emotional depth. This is an example of how emotions become such a foreign concept to humans. The only character in the story who questions his condition is Bernard Marx, who has an error in his conditioning, making him slightly incompatible with his predestined role. He talks about it to Lenina, but she does not share the same thought. No, the real problem is, how is that I can't? Or rather, because after all, I know quite well why I can't. What would it be if I could? If I were free, not enslaved by my conditioning? And Lenina said, but Bernard, you're saying the most awful things. This shown that humans actually have a lot of questions and basically curious. No matter how easy life is, having feelings are natural to humans. Second is the impact of technological interference on the government. The government in Brave New World is the one who administers every interference in the world state. The leaders who built the world state knew gods, Shakespeare, art, and other things just like before the Ford. They know that those things are valuable, but think that they have to choose between happiness and what people call high art. Having made the choice, the government has to let go of things they know are valuable. They close the museum, ban books, and erase religion for public, and also campaign against history. Their aim is actually to hide some truths that are irrelevant to the new world that they build. They only give their people the knowledge needed to be able to work, nothing more. But nothing more. The government believes that the more truth and knowledge they give, the more unhappy people would be. However, the government does not do it for its own benefit. They are just doing their job, making sure that no destruction will ever happen again to their people. In doing their job, they become as ignorant and as blinded as everybody else. All the while being hypocritical, megalomaniac, and tyrannical. After analyzing Brave New World, I can conclude that the government of the world state is not greedy. They are merely doing their job of granting people's wishes to have a quiet life. But in doing so, the government uses methods that are contrary to the true moral values. Due to having the wrong priority, the government also has the wrong concept of happiness. The concept of utilitarianism believes that general happiness should be achieved by allowing individuals to seek their own happiness. It requires a process, a series of successes as well as failures, pleasures as well as discomforts, ease as well as troubles. Happiness and unhappiness are two sides of a coin. One cannot exist without the other. Only by knowing unhappiness do people learn the meaning of happiness, which is why I convinced that people actually have no happiness in the world state. What they have might be blissful and easy, but they are ignorant and rigid. Their life has no grand purpose. No one really matters because everyone is a product of mass production that can be replaced easily. I think that's all for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.